Good evening, and welcome to the May 6, 2026 Disability Advisory Commission meeting. The meeting is now called to order. Will the clerk please call the roll to establish a quorum?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Commissioners, if you can please unmute your microphones. Commissioner Greenbaum?
Here.
Commissioner Barnbaum?
Here.
Commissioner Patel is currently absent. Commissioner Guerrero?
Here.
Commissioner Wilson?
Here.
Commissioner Dyson is absent. Commissioner Napper is also absent. Commissioner Poland?
Here.
Commissioner Igwigbe is absent. Vice Chair Ellis?
Present.
Commissioner Carr is currently absent, and Chair Kramer.
Present.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
I would like to remind members of the public in chambers that if you would like to speak on an agenda item, please turn in a speaker slip before the item begins. After the item is called, we will no longer accept speaker slips. You will have 2 minutes to speak once you are called on. We'll now proceed with today's agenda. If you are able to, please rise for the land acknowledgement and Pledge of Allegiance. To the original people of this land, the Nisenan people, the Southern Maidu Valley and Plains Miwok, Patwin, Wintun peoples, and the people of the Wilton Rancheria, Sacramento's only federally recognized tribe. May we acknowledge and honor the Native people who came before us and still walk beside us today on these ancestral lands by choosing to gather together today in the active practice of acknowledgement and appreciation for Sacramento's indigenous people's history, contributions, and lives. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next is approval of the consent calendar. Clerk, are there any members of the public who wish to speak on the consent calendar?
Thank you, Chair. We do not have any members of the public who wish to speak.
Are there any commissioners who wish to speak on this item?
Motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second that and let the record reflect Commissioner Patel, 1733.
Thank you. We'll now vote on the consent calendar.
Do you want me to do a roll call vote? Or do you want to do all in favor?
We'll do all in favor.
So we have a motion by Vice Chair Ellis and a second by Commissioner Barnbaum. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any abstain? Any noes? The motion passes.
We will now move on to the discussion calendar. Our first item on the agenda today is the Florin Road Vision Zero Safety Project.
I'm sorry, just wanted to make sure, was that a vote on the consent calendar combined?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Ricardo Navarro. I'm an assistant civil engineer for the city of Sacramento, and I will be presenting on the Florin Road Vision Zero Safety Project. Alrighty, so this project is 1.3 miles. It's between 24th Street to Franklin Boulevard along Florin Road. It is located in District 5 and District 8. And so the project goals is to improve safety for all of the users along Florin Road. The location was selected, and it started off, the story behind the location was starting off with the Vision Zero Action Plan, which was approved by council in August of 2018. and that initiated a study to see where around the city of Sacramento where there's a lot of frequent traffic incidents. And so along with that, it came shortly after was the top 5 corridor study where Florin Road was selected as one of the top 5. And so just to give a little bit about the funding source, the first phase of the project, which was known as a pavement rehabilitation project, came through LPP funding, the local partnership program. And then this is the second phase where it's being funded through the regional surface transportation program. And so some of the existing conditions of what's out there now, there's 2 lanes, eastbound and westbound. There's also Class 2 bike lanes, eastbound and westbound. There's a railroad crossing located just west of Luther Burbank High School. The posted speed limit is currently 40 miles per hour, and staff has deemed that there's limited crosswalks, which this project aims to fix. And so some of the proposed improvements done through this project will be bike lane gap closures, bulb outs, ADA compliant curb ramps, leading pedestrian intervals, also known as LPIs, updating and realigning crosswalks, and new traffic signals. And so I start off with location 2. Location 1 was taken care of through another project where they updated ADA ramps to standard and also implemented new traffic signal equipment. And so with location 2 being Florin Road and Woodbine Avenue, some of the main improvements going on in this intersection is the new APS push buttons being installed, new safety lighting to help illuminate the crosswalks at the intersection, and some signal head modifications, specifically pedestrian indications, to be updated. Location 3 is Florin Road and Loma Verde Way. This will be a brand new signal that'll be installed along Florin Road. There will be new crosswalks, new ADA curb ramps, and there will be eastbound and westbound at the traffic signal will be restricted to U-turns. Location number 4 is Florin Road and 29th Street. This is a signal modification, and one thing to really note is there will be implementations of a protected left turns for Indian Lane and 29th Street. And so therefore, the phasing timing will be a little bit different, but it will help improve the safety of left turns coming in and out, or going onto Florin Road. So location 5 is Florin Road at the railroad crossing. It will be, they implemented 2 new crosswalks on each side of the tracks. And on the west side of the tracks, it's supposed to service the RT bus location just north of the crossing. And for the east side, it's where it will service the Luther Burbank High School. And so there was a little bit of back and forth when trying to get this project, get this design approved, but we managed to get it in. There will be a pedestrian refuge median as well. And another new design element for this railroad is that they will be seen as a queue cutter, meaning there will be detection along eastbound and westbound traffic, so that way there's no cars being queued along the tracks. So in location 6 is Florin Road and Hesbury Lane, just right in front of Luther Burbank High School. Big thing to note is that Hesbury Lane will be signalized. I think in the existing now is not. And there will be equipment being currently updated to standard, and there will be a couple of directional ADA ramps being installed as part of this project. So location 7, Florin Road and Luther Drive. It's a lot going on here, but really what's being implemented is a new safety lighting being placed just near the crosswalks to help improve visibility of pedestrians crossing. Location 8. Location 8 is Florin Road and Munson Way. This will be a pedestrian signal. It will be reconstruct a little bit of the concrete median currently at the intersection. We would like to have it so that there's a pedestrian crossing there at the west side. And in order to keep the south crossing safe, we will be signalizing the left turns going onto Munson Way so that there is no conflict occurring at the south crosswalk. And so with that, it would include some new ADA ramps, some push buttons also as well. And there will be push buttons also placed at the refuge median. Location 9 is the final location. It's Florin Road and Franklin Boulevard. The main focus of this intersection is the implementation of the closure of the bike lanes, and that's because we are expanding to the north on Florin Road, about 400 feet, a little over 400 feet, to be able to close the gap of the bike lanes. And what I mean by that, the county did a bike lane project along Florin Road heading east, and so there was a little bit of a stretch where there was no bike lanes, and then it jumps into another Class 2 bike lane. And so what the city decides that we will go ahead and obtain a little bit of right-of-way, expand the road a little bit so that we can implement the bike lanes and close that gap for bicyclists. And along with that, there will be a new traffic signal equipment to kind of realign the signal heads with the expansion, along with new pedestrian push buttons and street lighting. Along with that, there will be a repurpose of the right turn, as you see the right turn pocket at the bottom. Originally, it's still a travel through, straight through. And so we decided that it would be the best to convert it into a right turn pocket and highlight the bike lane implementation to kind of make it flow a little bit better and have connectivity going east. And so along with that, it will be having a green bike lane treatment. And so this is a little bit about the project timeline. The design and the right-of-way will be completed by February of 2027, and we will be going into construction of July 2027. And this is my information if you need to get a hold of me, if you have any more questions. But that is the end of my presentation.
Thank you so very much for that presentation. Before I turn over to my fellow commissioners, for the crossing on the railroad, I just have little concerns about the rail safety. If is the railroad, is that rail line still active or is it deactive?
Can you rephrase that, please?
Okay. Because if it's active, my concern is of mobile devices getting stuck on the rail lines.
Oh no. There's advanced detection being placed, and so that there will always be cars being funneled off the tracks, and so that way there's not that issue of when train tracks come in, there will be nobody queued onto the tracks. So the idea with the detection is purely just to make sure that there's no queuing going along the tracks.
If it let's say someone using an ADA mobility device is crossing the road,
So you're talking about across the tracks specifically and not across the street, right?
Would we be able to pull up the slide? Yes. If you see that little gray, or it goes over the gray area over the rails, that's my concern. Is that sometimes, or I've heard stories or tales of people in mobile devices getting their devices stuck on the tracks.
Right, and I believe there is standards to make sure that the gap between the rails is not does not allow for wheelchairs to be getting stuck. It's pretty sure it's a design standard when it comes to pedestrian crossings at the tracks.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to turn it now to my fellow commissioners. Commissioner Barnbaum?
Yes, so Commissioner or Chair Kramer, I was going to answer your question about the tracks. You asked if they were active or not.
Yes.
So the flyover is the light rail tracks, and there's no worry or issue about crossing those. When that was built in the early 2000s, they knew Florin Road was going to be a very heavily traveled road, and there will be frequent 15-minute service on the trains. So in that section, a flyover was built so the tracks gates wouldn't come down so often. But as far as the tracks that are what's called at grade versus those above grade in railroad speak, the tracks that are at grade have freight trains today. However, this brings me to my next point. By 2031, we are expecting in this region the Altamont Corridor Express, or ACE trains, to come into Sacramento as far as Rio Linda, Natomas, on that alignment. That's the old SP alignment, along with an existing train service today called the Gold Runner that travels as far south as Bakersfield and currently up to Sacramento Valley Station. But any new additional trains, because Union Pacific said no more on the UP alignment by Sac State and Power Inn and Fruit Ridge, but they've given the okay to make the alignment next to the light rail alignment. So eventually they could build a station in the next 5 years at City College. So there's going to be a lot of construction in the next 5 years over in that area. And that's the alignment that you were concerned about, that it is going to have added passenger train service, but more in the terms of heavy rail equipment versus light rail equipment, if that answers your question there. But what I wanted to ask to staff was, I was just on Florin Road today, just got my ballot in the mail last night, and not 24 hours later, I rode down to the elections office and took care of business because I'm flying a red eye tonight, and I needed to get that done. Didn't want to forget about it. So I was on Florin Road, leaving the office today, from the office to the light rail station we were just referring to. And I wanted to ask in the first question, in the slides you're presenting, and I think we had a project, Jesse might remind me of this, by a creek or a canal near Del Paso Park, Auburn Boulevard, and Watt Avenue, where we were partnering with the county. Due to the geographic location you are giving in this presentation, do you find it that it will be necessary to partner with SACDOT along with the Office of Supervisor Patrick Kennedy and his staff, because that's his district?
We can certainly look into it. It's just at the time when we did our coordination, we partnered with county to get the improvements over at Florin and Franklin, and of course Union Pacific. And so we could definitely look into it and see if coordination's required.
Okay, and then one of the locations you said was Florin at Indian/29th Street?
Correct.
Okay, yeah, so just to remind the public, that's also the entrance or the gateway when the 81 goes into the Florin or out of the Florin station, is that intersection, and that's a very frequented intersection for transit use, as well as general traffic. But you talked about the crosswalks over by the actual railroad crossing. Are you taking into account what I had mentioned earlier, that by the hope of 2031, that we have what's called the Valley Rail project in service for the public at that time when this project goes to construction? Or are you needing to make coordination and contact with the staff responsible of that, which is based in Stockton?
We could definitely do the coordination with the staff. We're still in the middle of coordinating with UP as we speak, so we could definitely make that coordination effort if it see fits.
Okay, yeah, so when time allows, if you could reach out to San Joaquin Regional Rail Commission Executive Director Chris Orlando and his Deputy Executive Director, David LaPerry. And I have a meeting with them on May 15th after I come back in Stockton of the San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority at 10 o'clock in the morning in their chamber in Stockton. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Barnbaum. Commissioner Napper?
It's either Napper or Poland.
So that's me. We're sharing for some reason. My name is also spelled wrong on this, by the way, just in case anybody cares. Okay, anyway, so I think to get to the chair's question about the crosswalk specifically, so you mentioned a lot in your presentation. You just said ADA ramp or ADA curb ramp. There are a lot, this is the Disability Advisory Commission, right? And the questions that we're gonna have are very specific to the ADA. And what my chair is talking about is, for example, flangeways that make it so that there is not a bump over the track, right? That it is flush so that somebody with a cane doesn't get stuck. I think you had said, well, the cars won't queue up. That's not the issue. You know, there are a lot of detectable warnings, for example, that need to be done. You know, truncated domes and gap management and flush surfaces that I didn't really hear much about in your report. I'm curious about those curb ramp, the ADA curb ramps. There are a bunch of different kinds. What kind are you guys looking at? You know, this is the Disability Advisory Commission. This is what we got. So I would really appreciate sort of that specific guidance and details. Have you guys planned that yet? Is it just kind of up in the air?
No, I mean, we do have curb ramps. It's currently, this is a 30% plan as you're seeing, so it's still very preliminary. So there are subject to change, but for what I understand is the ADA curb ramp is illustrated based on ADA standards, and I try to make sure that it's to standard per ADA. So when I mention ADA curb ramps, that's what I mean.
Sure. I mean, even in the ADA specifically says that different rates, depending on where the sidewalk is and depending on where the entry is, right? There's diagonal curb ramps. There's different curb ramps in the ADA specifically. So if you don't have that yet, I would really appreciate in the future having that as something that is ready. I mean, again, ADA curb ramps isn't that's not like a brand. Like there's more there.
Right.
That's
Okay.
good. Maybe I can interject, help answer, but I think Ricardo's just getting to the point that that through the evaluation of these site conditions that we are able to install the city-adopted accessible standard for a curb ramp, which is in the city standard specs. So it has all the slopes and that sort of thing defined in the standard spec. So we haven't seen anything that would mean that we'd have to deviate from that.
Okay, and is that crosswalk with the tracks and things, like, are those ready to be put in, that walking across a sidewalk or a crosswalk that is directly on light rail tracks is gonna be good?
I mean, well, we're still in the 30% phase, so we're still have to go through the final design, and so there's still a lot of floating details about the design itself. So your comments are going to be considered. Make sure that everything is acceptable per city standards.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Wilson?
Great, thank you. Okay, thanks for your presentation. Just was advice on when designing the curb ramps, I noticed sometimes those textured metal plates kind of tell you that you're coming to a street, you know. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're angled like diagonally towards the street instead of straight towards the other like side of the crosswalk, especially on the more curved areas of the street. It's a good idea to make sure those plates are angled so that someone with a visual impairment is getting guided in the correct direction. So they need to be they need to be oriented straight or have some type of guide, so somebody with a visual impairment knows exactly where they're going. So it's something to consider.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, we'll be sure to review the design and make sure that the alignments of the crosswalk and the truncated domes that you're talking about will be aligned properly. So we'll definitely make sure that's taken into consideration.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilson. Commissioner Greenbaum?
Thank you, Chair. I think my fellow commissioners share the same sentiment in terms of when you're looking at these conditions, it's important to have the mindset that, you know, the ADA is not necessarily the ceiling, it's the floor. And I think that will help and assist engineers in terms of deciding on specific branding and what Commissioner Pullen had been alluding or speaking about. One of my question is, and I often do ask this when I hear that new traffic signals are being put in, are they bilingual?
I believe they use primarily symbols. So I guess the answer to your question would be no.
Okay. Oh, so it's, and rather than walk, it states it's just a certain signal for walk?
Correct. When it comes to the pedestrian indicators, there's usually the stop, pan symbol, or it's the walking person. It's usually, we do not try to go with the lettering.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Greenbaum. Commissioner Barnbaum?
Yes, one thing I overlooked in stating, since I had mentioned about the different railroad services that are being used or will be used in the future, this evening during our meeting, there was also a meeting at Woodlake Elementary School, which the San Joaquin Regional Rail Commission is hosting in prepping the Old North Sacramento area for the introduction of the ACE and the Gold Runner train. I'm appointed to this commission by Councilmember Dickinson, and we traded texts, and he said, on my behalf, he will attend that meeting while I attend this meeting, and we'll be exchanging information. So little did I know that this new railroad service was going to be mentioned even in this project. But the fact that it's coming on those tracks where we need them to be, you know, in an ADA accessible way, simply because there will be a lot of increased train traffic besides freight on the at-grade tracks, which I hear this commission is very concerned about on the ADA accessibility things, and not so much on the flyover, because that doesn't interfere with the sidewalk or getting across anyway, with those trains over there being so frequent. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Barnbaum. Vice Chair Ellis?
Thank you. I really appreciate your detail in this report, and I think to my fellow commissioners, it's kind of incumbent upon us that all these presentations that we receive on these projects, the reason why there's not a lot of finality to the detail is they bring them to us at a point where we're able to add input and add our perspective in the planning process. So it's keeping that in mind, that when we bring in things, we're like, you know, this other project, we really like these aspects of it and think they could fit into this project. So we're bringing our kind of lived experience and our representation to these projects. And, you know, also the city has more or less established standards that in some ways exceed the minimal of the ADA, and then other ways they meet that. And yes, to the point that that is the floor, we should do more if we can. And I think in this instance, there are several players that are in alignment, and that coordination can be challenging for a myriad of reasons. You know, we have the county where we got to a point and then there's a gap, you know, something like that. And then, you know, you have these, the rail tracks and such. So, you know, these projects get complicated, and trying to do, you know, everything the best way we can do it with the technology we have at the moment can be the challenge, and getting it in there at hopefully a decent price for the project and with all the concerns. So I just like to highlight that, because like with the pedestrian buttons, and that always comes up with these projects with the intersections, as it should, but keeping in mind the city has not changed that standard since the last meeting we've had, right? So it's kind of keeping those details in mind. It's a fair point to bring up, and we should voice it that, you know, we want to have the evolution of these standards, and we should do that, but keeping those kinds of things in mind as we review these projects. And I think by and large, this one is one that's been long overdue, especially the proximity with the high school and there are several you know, lighted intersection upgrades in this project that have been long overdue for the community that this commission has heard about too. So I do applaud the effort on the part of staff to bring this forward to us and to give us the opportunity to, you know, add our perspective into it, and I think it's been valuable. So thank you for everything you've done to bring this project to this point.
Thank you, Vice Chair Ellis. Commissioners Pullen and Guerrero, sorry if I pronounced that wrong.
Hi, it's me. I think my questions, I have a few questions. On the crosswalk, you know, across the city, as they continue to upgrade different ones, the version of upgrade it is super variable, which means that some are very visible and some you don't notice the upgrade. I know the Commissioner Ellis just shared, you know, that we're kind of in the beginning stages. What are the thoughts around the visibility and the colors that are being used? You know, as far as the paint colors and stuff that go into all of these crosswalks, are they, one, what are they being considered, but then are they all the same? Because it's along a long corridor, right? So are they all the same, or is there variation? Because I've seen that too. Sometimes there's a better upgrade here, and down the road, like, it's not as visible.
Okay, so to answer your question, let's start with the color. Typically, with the MUTCD, a lot of the color that are predominantly being used is white, but you may see some instances where you see the crosswalks is yellow, and that's usually because a school is located nearby. And so those are typically the two colors you're gonna see. Now the styles you can see is with the, they call it the 4x4x4, which is the, I think I have a slide on that actually that you can see it. So it kind of looks like the, almost, I guess, like little bricks, I guess, with spacing in it. There's that style, but I know the city, as of lately, in a lot of our projects, we're progressing more to a ladder style, which is the longer vertical lines you see along the crosswalks. And so with going with that route, we believe that that's the best visibility that gives to drivers when approaching a crosswalk.
Gotcha. So that kind of leads, thank you. That kind of leads to my second comment. It was hard for me to picture this in pieces, so I pulled up Google Maps. And because what I wanted to see, or I was hoping to see, is that all the crosswalks around the school are being upgraded, that we're not just doing one or two. And they are, so 6 and 7 are the whole high school piece, right? It's that corridor. I would highly, highly recommend, like for the notes, that those are yellow. But then additionally, there have been some, because this is for safety, right? There have been some safety upgrades in our city that have done the lower level, and then we go back and we go back and we go back because it's still not safe enough. And so the corridor of Club Center and Banfield in North Natomas is a great example of that. Unfortunately, there were 3 lives lost before we got to the level upgrade, and that we are at now. And I really think that the corridor of Club Center and Banfield is a model of what safety should be when, especially when students are present. So it's yellow, but it has the bars that force people to slow down. It has, you know, the two, I don't know your technical term for what they are. I've actually asked in the past, and I don't have the technical term. But the bars are about 2.5 feet tall, probably 3 feet tall, and they're planted in the road. And so when we look at location 5 with that, you had the right name for it, the center place where they can stand. What was that called again?
Refuge median.
There we go. When we look at that option, but then also location 6 and 7 have something in the center of the road there, it's a great opportunity to put those bars, which increases the visibility. There's reflectors on the top, and you're going at it at safety. So we should do a small cost when we're in a project to make it as safe as possible, especially when high traffic of students are present in a busy time of day. So just some recommendations that I have on that. I do think that corridor is, and the neighborhood, I think, helped kind of fund that because it just wasn't safe enough, and the efforts of the white wasn't good. And so then we went to yellow, and now we're at the level that it is very safe. Everybody slows down, and it should be sort of the model when we're going in for safety, because the cost of 3 times versus let's just throw a couple extra bars where we're already in construction is, I can only imagine, vastly different for our city.
Okay.
But then my other question was the signal modification. Can you talk more about what that is? You might have said it initially, and I was just taking notes, and maybe I missed it. But for the 6 and 7, there were a few things, but what is the modification that is planned there?
Okay, so for number 6, we'll start with number 6. There's an added phase, meaning allowing another leg of the intersection to be actuated, is the term. So meaning out of Hesbury Lane, I think currently as it stands, it's not signalized. So it's kind of like treated as a stop, and then look left and see if everything's okay, and then turn right. But in this instance, it will be, you will see, a red ball, and you're gonna wait for that green light to come in and be able to, choose which direction you'd like to go, right or left. So that is the modification that's being done there. There's also, I think, traffic signal equipment that's gonna be upgraded due to that, to keep it up to standard, and also be able to accommodate some coordination along the whole corridor itself, not just this intersection.
So do those locations, especially with them being with high influx of traffic when there's a school event, start of school, end of school, those sorts of things, do they have the push button? Is that part of the signal modification? Will there be a push button signal available in those crosswalks?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Napper?
Thank you. Thank you so much for your presentation. Thank you for your questions. Do these signals have sound?
Yes. So typically when you approach it, it has that beeping sound. And obviously if in a busy street like Florin, you're going to hear a lot of the cars going by and it's really, really loud. That beep will be able to be louder as it adjusts to the noise level. And then if you press the button, it'll tell you, wait. And then there's the option to, if you hold the button, it can give you information on where exactly you are crossing at what street and provide information that way. So those who are visually impaired can have information on where they're going.
Thank you so much again for your presentation.
Thank you.
Clerk, are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item?
Thank you, Chair. We do not have any speakers for this item.
Thank you. We'll now move on to our second item, L&N Street Bikeways Project.
Hello, Commission. It's nice to see you again. I'm Luke Fusen, a Senior Engineer in Public Works. I'll be talking about the L&N Street Bikeways project today. Today we're going to go through a quick introduction to the project and a little bit of the project background, the coordination that's going to go into making this project successful. I'll show you some of the preliminary design, and we'll talk about the funding and timeline and open it up to discussion. The limits of the L&N Street Bikeways project are shown with the orange lines on the map. The purpose of the L&N Street Bikeways project is to extend the separated bikeway network within the central city between the existing and other proposed bike facilities, to improve connections between neighborhoods and key community destinations in the downtown core and encourage more bicycle trips. The state of California is currently constructing the Capitol Annex project, which is shown with the blue lines on the map, and the state capitol and the Capitol Park is shown on the map as well. That project will install separated Class 4 bikeways and associated modifications to the roadway lane configuration, parking, and traffic signal operations along L Street between 10th Street and 14th Street, and along N Street from 9th Street to 14th Street. This project, the L&N Street Bikeways project, will implement separated Class 4 bikeways along L Street and N Street from 5th Street to the beginning of the proposed Capitol Annex improvements, and on L Street as well from 14th Street to Alhambra Boulevard. And on N Street, from 14th to 15th Street, and from 5th Street, and on N Street from 10th Street, where did I? And on N Street from 5th Street to 9th Street, sorry about that, and 14th Street to 15th Street. This project will provide a continuous low-stress bikeway couplet along L Street and N Street, enhancing bicycle access to downtown amenities. During the design, individual blocks may include buffered Class 2 bike lanes if parking separated Class 4 bikeways are determined to be infeasible due to curbside uses or driveway spacing. The project will also upgrade all non-standard curb ramps within the project footprint to be ADA accessible, and will install accessible pedestrian signal upgrades at every signalized intersection within the project limits, and there are over 20 intersections. And I think we're in the project, and I think we're going to do APS upgrades to 17 separate intersections with this project, providing APS throughout the project on L Street from 5th Street to Alhambra Boulevard, and on N Street from 5th Street to 15th Street. The project was initially scoped to end at 15th Street on both L Street and N Streets. I'll explain. The city was recently awarded an Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities grant that allowed us to extend the project on L Street from 15th Street to Alhambra Boulevard. So a little bit of the project background. The L&N Street Bikeways project meets the goal of the Central City Specific Plan to increase mobility and allow safe and convenient movement of pedestrians, bicyclists, transit users, and automobiles while managing parking. This project is similar to the recently constructed Central City Mobility Project. which expanded the protected bikeway network on I Street, P Street, Q Street, 5th Street, 9th Street, 10th Street, 19th Street, and 21st Street. So it's essentially, it's kind of like that, where we're expanding the bikeway network on the downtown grid. Some of the benefits of this project, it'll improve accessibility for all users, fill gaps in the existing bicycle network by adding new facilities through travel lane reductions, provide new parking and protected bikeways, establish a more complete continuous bicycle network with appropriate crossing treatments, and provide low-stress bicycle connections between the Capitol and Doco and into Midtown. Some key considerations for this project. We are evaluating potential on-street parking impacts. We expect some parking losses, but we'll do our best to minimize those. SAC-RT operates multiple bus stops within the project limits, and there are light rail crossings at 7th Street and 8th Street. Our team will coordinate with the improvements with RT. This is a multimodal project and will benefit transit users and all users. Solid waste pickup is always a consideration when installing separated bikeways, so we'll be coordinating with solid waste pickup and accommodating locations for solid waste. And then finally, Union Pacific does operate railroad tracks within the project limits that run north-south between 19th Street and 20th Street, so there will be UPRR railroad coordination with this project. We also will be coordinating with the community. The project includes a robust outreach plan. The project installs improvements along L Street adjacent to the Golden One Center. So we will coordinate our events with the events team and consider the arena's traffic management plan. And we'll consult with PBIDs and community organizations like CADA, Downtown SAC Partnership, and Midtown Associated, and other community organizations. So let's get to the project. The proposed improvements include, as I said, accessible pedestrian signals at all intersections. I think 17 intersections within the project limits, and those upgrades will include the audible functionality, the vibro-tactile functionality with the push buttons, countdown heads, and all the kind of modern APS upgrades that come along with upgrading signals for accessibility. We also will be upgrading all non-standard curb ramps throughout the project limits to be ADA compliant. And we'll evaluate the appropriate type of curb ramp through the design, but they may be plaza-style ramps, case A, case C, or the bidirectional corner ADA ramps, whatever is the most appropriate solution for the given location. The project does include a lane reduction in certain locations, reducing the number of traveled lanes from 3 to 2 in order to install those protected bikeways. And in some locations where the roadway is currently 2 lanes, we'll be doing some upgrades to the striping, refreshing the striping for visibility and those types of things. So the State Capitol Annex project, which is going to be constructed around the same time as ours, probably just slightly before, is currently in design. And the State Capitol Annex frontage improvements are shown on this slide. The top view shows L Street between 10th Street and 11th Street at Capitol Park. The existing road is a 3-lane, one-way road, although one lane has been blocked for quite some time due to annex construction. Between 10th Street and 11th Street, the annex project will maintain 3 lanes of traffic with a buffered bikeway, but the remainder of the project will have 2 traffic lanes and either a buffered bikeway with delineators, raised concrete median, or parking protected bikeway. The Capitol Annex project will upgrade the traffic signals to APS signals as well and upgrade curb ramps. And the bottom view shows in-street where the Capitol Annex project will reduce 3 lanes of traffic to 2 lanes and install parking protected bikeways, APS signals, and upgraded curb ramps. So I just wanted to show that to give a picture of kind of what the state is doing and how our project will tie into it. This slide shows a representation of the improvements that we'll be making on L Street. The view on the top shows the proposed improvements for L Street from 7th Street to 8th Street. This is intended to show the typical improvements that will be implemented throughout the L and N Street Bikeways project. As shown on the typical cross-section on the bottom of the slide, the existing road is a one-way, 3-lane roadway between 5th Street and 14th Street, and a 2-lane roadway from 14th Street to Alhambra Boulevard. This project will remove 1 lane of traffic where there are currently 3 lanes to create space for a 6-foot to 7-foot parking protected bikeway. The project will update the Class 2 bike lanes where the road is 2 lanes. The traffic signals, again, will be upgraded to include APS, including countdown ped heads, new APS push buttons, and ladder crosswalks. The project will upgrade all non-standard curb ramps to be ADA compliant. The project will incorporate green conflict pavement marking at driveways and other required locations such as bus stops. And loading zones will be identified, and the design will make sure that loading zones are accommodated with the project. So the project is early in development right now, and the design of the extension of L Street down to Alhambra Boulevard has yet to be designed. We are currently working on a council action to award grant funding and increase the scope of the project. So we don't have a design for that section yet, but I'll be sure to take your comments into consideration. The view on top of this slide shows the proposed improvements for in-street from 7th Street to 8th Street. As shown on the typical cross-section on the bottom of the slide, the existing road is a one-way 3-lane roadway between 5th Street and 15th Street. The design is similar to L Street. The project will remove one traffic lane and create space for a 6-foot to 7-foot parking protected bikeway. The traffic signals will be upgraded to include APS, including countdown ped heads, new APS push buttons, ladder crosswalks, upgrade all non-standard curb ramps to be ADA compliant, and again, incorporate green conflict pavement markings at driveways and other required locations such as bus stops. So similar improvements for L and N Street. This project was initially funded locally by the city's Transportation Corridor Program. The funding was intended to cover the initial scope of work from 5th Street to Capitol Park and from 14th Street to 15th Street. Last spring, the California Department of Housing and Community Development issued a notice of funding availability for the Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities Program, which is AHSC. The city partnered with Community Housing Works, which provides affordable apartment communities, on a grant application that would assist the I Street apartment development and allow the L and N Street Bikeways project to increase in scope. The project was awarded $3.4 million, and that's how we were able to add this additional work down to Alhambra and the additional APS at intersections and curb ramps and those type of things. We're working on the cost estimate. Again, this project's very preliminary at the moment. So we're working on the estimates, but the current estimated construction cost is anticipated to be approximately $5 million, around $5 million for now. So here's the project timeline. We're currently in the preliminary engineering phase, and we're working on that. During the preliminary engineering phase, we'll be initiating our community outreach and public engagement efforts on this project to get out in the community and talk to businesses and those type of things, with the goal of completing our environmental documentation, preliminary engineering, and our city's project report by the end of this year. Throughout the process, we'll be working with UPRR and the California Public Utilities Commission and Sacramento RT on all the various railroad coordination and transit coordination that this project has. Around the start of 2027, we'll transition into final design with the goal to complete final design and advertise the project for construction in 2027, and then hopefully be in construction in 2028. So with that, I'll open it up for a discussion.
Thank you so very much for your presentation. Before I hand it over to the other commissioners, I just had a concern with the buffers taking up space where like vehicles with ADA equipment, like for loading and unloading, possibly being blocked by the buffers. ADA parking stalls will be incorporated into the parking, similar to the project that's shown on the screen here, which was our Central City Mobility project that was recently constructed, and that it'll kind of be very similar to how those stalls were installed on that project. Okay. Thank you. Vice Chair Ellis?
Thank you. some, I was on the DAC 10 years ago when the parking protected bike lanes were first coming around, and at the time I liked them, and then in practicality, I'm like got mixed feelings about them. My number one feeling is I feel people don't use them when they should. They're on the sidewalk still, and it's like we spend all this money to create these, and it's like the scooters and the bikes should be over there, and I'm on the sidewalk, so that, I'll get off that soapbox for a minute. We spend this money, let's use it, come on, they're there. My other kind of gripe with how it was implemented, you say you're gonna minimize parking, the impacts on the parking, I would say maybe not minimize it so much, because my interaction with them, with these, is when you're trying to cross the street with the bike lane there at the down curb, now it's hard for oncoming traffic to see that somebody is trying to cross the street. It gets a little precarious. I feel like we need like one less car, possibly maybe more. I don't really have a great solution for this because of the visibility. It's like you're too far back, and it's like I don't want to necessarily venture that far out. So there's kind of a dichotomy on that side of the street. On the other side of the street, it's not so bad. So that's just kind of I've been like racking my brain on this one, so I don't have a great solution for you. So, so I just tossed that out there as you're trying to design this, keeping that in mind of the visibility of someone, and especially somebody, you know, utilizing a mobility device like a wheelchair or power chair. They may be lower, and there could be a big truck, so then they're not going to be seen. You know, there's some kind of sightline issues that I think I don't really have great solutions. I'm going to be honest on that. So I just asked to consider the creativity of our engineers on that one. The last question I have, and it may be more towards the state project, if I'm right, given where I'm going to ask, versus what you're talking about here, but since you brought up both, I might as well. I believe it's 13th and N, is kind of been a precarious intersection. So there is a light at 12th and N, and to get, you know, right now there's, with the project, that's where the Capitol Garage is for the legislature usually, but, and then so I see why there's not a lighted intersection the next block up, you know, but there is the Westminster Church on one corner, and then there is a senior, I'm forgetting the name of it, but like a senior living facility on the other corner, and then you have Capitol Park on the other side, obviously. And so many times there's a lot of, you know, especially when there are church activities, and then there are a lot of residents living in that corner trying to cross, you know, they want to go hang out in our beautiful Capitol Park. And it gets a little precarious around, I would say, heavy commute times, like around between 4 and 6 in the evening, you know. People are, you know, probably driving a little too fast down N Street, in my opinion, but that's a whole nother thing. I mean, the speed limit's the speed limit, but they're clearly not going the speed limit, so that's a whole nother, you know, issue. But I'm wondering if a similar signal like what's at near Target on J and 18th with the beacon.
RRFB.
Yeah,
the
I knew you
beacon.
knew what I was talking about.
Yeah.
If something like that could be, because a full-on lighted intersection may not be necessary at that, because then you have another one at 15th, so I get that. The traffic flow may not warrant a full-on, you know, signalized intersection here, but something more than just a crosswalk, I think, is needed, given what is at that corner with the church and the residents and such. So I just figure I'd toss that out. If we can add that into this project, that would be great.
Okay, well, thanks for your input. We'll look into that.
Thanks.
Yep.
Thank you, Vice Chair Ellis. Commissioner Barnbaum?
Yes. On the slide that had showed the map of the Capitol Annex, and you were showing, I guess, the whole project, all the way to Alhambra Boulevard, and then the Capitol Annex was in...
You mean this map?
Okay, yeah, this map. Okay, so we have the light blue and then the orange.
Right.
So when the Capitol Annex project segments are finished by the state, will you and the city then be able to jump in and conclude this project in whole with the ADA, bicycle lane improvements and such, but currently you have to wait for the state to finish the annex project? Or is that even after it's finished going to be untouched?
We wouldn't necessarily have to wait for them to finish. I think they're a little bit ahead of us in project development right now. Yeah, so the city is actually reviewing their frontage improvement plans right now in our development engineering group. And so they're on, I think, their second or third plan review, and their project right now is a plan to go a little bit ahead of ours. So if the way the timing currently works out is, on the schedule, we'll be going to construction around the same time they're potentially finishing. The projects could overlap. If we were to go first, we would just need to coordinate with them, because there's coordination to how we tie into each other. But as of right now, it's looking like their project probably start first, and then we'll come in and tie into it. It'll look, a seamless project when it's complete. These two projects are very similar.
Okay, and then on the part of the city segment, particularly L Street, crosses, looks like it's here, 19th and 20th Street.
Correct.
And in that section, you indicated coordination with the California Public Utilities Commission and the Union Pacific Railroad.
That's right.
Let me also remind staff, the public, and the commission, much as like I did on that last item, we heard about Florin Road and the railroad alignment that I mentioned at grade. This is the same railroad alignment and not far from the planned Midtown station for Altamont Corridor Express and the Gold Runner before they head north to either Old North Sacramento, which is the subject of that meeting this evening at Woodlake Elementary School, or their terminus at Rio Linda and Natomas off of Elkhorn and Blacktop. So with that in mind, would you be able to include any coordination on this with the San Joaquin Regional Rail Commission and San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority, since by 2031, they're planning to run passenger trains through here, increasing the heavy rail traffic through this area in addition to the existing freight train schedule that UP runs.
Okay.
I think that would be a public benefit. And certainly what I mentioned earlier about the sections in light blue, which I know doesn't have anything to do with the railroad, but has a lot to do with the ADA accessibility directly and the protected bike lanes. And to Vice Chair Ellis's point about separating scooters and vehicles that are non-motorized from pedestrians and the sidewalk, I think is going to be a critical thing. So that's part of his comments that I'll second here on the podium. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Birnbaum. Commissioner Pullen?
I just wanted to thank you for the very specific as you can, ADA stuff. I also appreciate specifically naming like the vibro-tactile stuff and things like that. That's really important. I think obviously you guys are the experts when it comes to engineering and making this stuff happen. So it's one of those things where when I just see like just ADA ramp, I assume that somebody knows, but it's really nice to specifically name it. So I really appreciate that. And yeah, that's basically it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Pullen. Commissioner Carr?
Thank you for your presentation. My questions align with Vice Chair Alice's comments. And my question was up to 2 points. One is like you mentioned minimizing parking spaces. Are there any existing spaces that are accessible parking spots? Are there any available right now? And if they're moved, will they remain comparable distance that they are currently? That is the first one. And then second is that, you said public outreach will happen. Historically, public outreach does not have that we don't get that many good results. So what will be will there be any specific steps you'll take to make sure that you get, because this is being such a, centralized location and being a huge space which affects so many people. So will you have some specific steps to make sure that you get a lot of public input on these topics? Thank you.
Yeah, I guess to your second question, we have a public outreach consulting firm on our team that has an outreach plan for the project that includes meetings with the public and business owners, and like I said, like the different associations and those type of things around the downtown area and midtown area. We're currently in the process of getting that started. So we will be planning meetings with this project, and I can let the commission know, when those meetings will occur if that's desired. But we have an outreach plan for this project. And to your first question, I don't have the number of the existing ADA stalls off the top of my head, but we will be installing standard the number of appropriate ADA parking stalls per the regulations and guidance.
Thank you, Commissioner Carr. Commissioner Wilson?
Hello. Thank you for the presentation. So, where was I going with this? The target protected bike lanes, they oftentimes create an opportunity to increase the availability of accessible field parking for somebody with an accessible vehicle, especially with the ramp on the right side. Because as long as there's no barrier directly next to the vehicle, like raised concrete, then it usually it makes it easier to unload a van. Because with current parking, you have to find a very specific set of circumstances. So there has to be no tree there, no utility pole, or either some type of fence. But with these parking protected bike lanes, as long as there's no barrier directly where a ramp unloads, it usually makes it more accessible. As long as the curve of the street isn't too steep, it actually makes it easier to park. So just something to keep in mind.
Okay. No, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
We'll take that into consideration. Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilson. Commissioner Patel?
Oh, hi. Thank you so much for your presentation. I'm going to echo back into Commissioner Ellis and go back to the bike lane and the scooter. And I don't know if it's something you can do in your capacity as somebody who lives in District 4. There are tons of people with their scooters just speeding away. And is there a possibility of saying, bike and scooter lane, just to try to encourage them? Because, downtown is there's a lot of traffic. I walk to work. A lot of people walk to work. It's very congested already. And then you just got all of a sudden somebody zooming in with a scooter. Imagine if there's somebody walking. There is a lot of people with disability walking, especially those who are blind, those restrained to a wheelchair. And you have to, you have all these scooters just going left and right. I think there's a very increase of people riding in scooters. I don't know how to explain it. But is there a way to not only name the lanes as bike lanes, but also bike and scooters?
That's interesting comment. I think, I want to say that I've been to other cities where they might have had some signs that recommended that the scooters use the bike lane. I don't know about painting on the paint itself, because that's kind of a standard paint, symbols that are adopted. But signage is something, I could take a look at I'm not sure if that's been done in the city, but it's something I can maybe look into.
Thank you. I'm sorry. There's just so many, and even at myself,
I know.
I've even tripped. So.
I hear you, yeah, yeah.
Hi, thank you so much for all of this. I'm a visual person, so I especially appreciated the real pictures too, to help me kind of visualize what is gonna be going on down here. I think my question kind of echoes these, or maybe idea. I've ridden in some of these newer bike lanes that have been painted, and so I so appreciate them. I've taken my family, and what my experience is, and when I've talked to other families who have done the same thing, is that licensed drivers can understand the nuances of some of these new like the one picture that was up a few minutes ago, some of these nuanced ways of making the bike lanes work. It makes sense because we have this training as a licensed driver, but our children, our teenagers go and they're like, whoa, what am I supposed to do now? Because they approach something that looks very different than a bike lane that they're used to. And I can imagine that if teenagers who aren't quite licensed drivers, that maybe licensed drivers who haven't had driver's training might be approaching it the same way. And potentially drivers may also be not realizing, oh, this bike lane has this thorough way. And so I really think that there is an opportunity and wonder, and roll those scooters into this idea, if there is a place where maybe your team partners with Jibe, who does so much education and outreach for activity and biking and things in the community, to create some training and educational videos on how do I negotiate, how do I use this pathway when, your designs, I'm reading them and I'm looking at the little nuances, I'm like, oh, that's how that works. But that looks totally different than anything I've seen before in an intersection. And so when a biker approaches it, or a student on their way to school approaches it, it might be a safety concern. So I wonder about some training and educational outreach videos. Might be something that can roll as commercials if they're short. It might be something that could play on the TV screens in the bus stations that have them. But I think there's an opportunity to help educate our community here as part of that public outreach. And so I wanted to share that idea and that wondering. Maybe we get some of the scooters off the sidewalks that way too.
Please.
And AI will do it all for you now. So there are some really cool chatbots that'll just make the video for you. It's kind of crazy. But then my question is, the section, and you guys have probably already thought about this, but the section, what is it, 5th Street, maybe to 10th, or in that area on L. Sometimes when we are improving our city, it becomes a public danger a little bit while the construction phase. My husband's garage was on 5th and L, and it moved to 9th and L. And when there's an event at DOCO at Golden One, we are 4 blocks, and it has increased his commute home by 25 minutes. Just by moving parking garages 4 streets up, because now he has to cut through it. And so I'm wondering about when those blocks are being in construction, is there a discussion or an idea about more of a quick build phase so that gets done more quickly? And is there some really good thought about like the prime season and the really, really increased peak season of events that are at Golden One, maybe not being when you're working on those blocks?
Yeah, I understand your point there. We're really early in project development, so we haven't started laying out, detour plans or traffic handling plans and those types of things yet. But I understand that issue. All I can say is once we get closer to Once we get closer to having final design and start looking at those things, I'll remember your comment and,
I think that like winter season, I mean, there's a couple months there where it is every other night or 5 of the 7 nights a week. And so that can be pretty hazardous for the public right away if it's being constructed during that really peak time.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Commissioner Patel, Commissioner Napper?
Yes, thank you. I hope you can hear me okay. This is Leslie Napper speaking. Thank you for your presentation. I also love the visuals. Thank you, Commissioner Patel. I love the PSA training videos. Great, love it. Also concerned around the DOCO area, particularly for events. As a person living with disability, and sometimes drop-off is challenging if it's not thought through. So as you expand this, I hope there's consideration for drop-offs for those of us that may need that accessibility access way to do so.
Yeah, you're referring to at the arena? Yeah.
That area, and as you expand the lane, or in those PSA videos, you guys can let us know where we should be going.
Yeah, we have started thinking about how that coordination is going to work with specifically loading and unloading, because I know there is loading and unloading right there on L Street. Yeah.
It's already kind of tough. And then another consideration, I think somewhere in the Midtown area on the L Street, I think there's another big church over there. Don't quote me, please forgive me. Center of Praise if it's you. I'm sorry if I got it wrong. But, parking is going to be interesting for them. Also maybe as an outreach, maybe connect with some of the larger churches and in that area as well. And then the other consideration I'm very concerned about is around 25th and all the way to 29th, well, actually to Alhambra. But there's housing there, and that's housed disability community. We have disability community neighbors there, older adult community there, and navigating Sutter's Fort, Sutter Hospital, trying to go to Safeway, all these other things. And so that could be another opportunity to outreach to their, to their tenant residential counselor, whatever that looks like for them, however they name it. I think that'd be a really good idea. They may be wonderful thought partners with ensuring that they have, access and are comfortable with, with crossing streets and et cetera, et cetera. I received what Vice Chair Ellis shared around, not sure what to do because sometimes the broader curves make it hard for cars to see us, but the bars work really well. But what does that look like, right? Because the bars sometimes are a little taller than me, but it feels like so. But I think for the older adult community in this area that I know our disability neighbors that live around this area, they're mobile. They're outside. Also, lots of drop-offs and pickups too, and that includes medical transports. And so I just wanted to throw that out there. They may be really good thought partners.
Yeah, I agree. That's going to be an interesting part of the project by the hospital and Sutter's Fort and through that area.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Napper. Commissioner Birnbaum?
Yes, Commissioner Napper brought up a good point about the loading and unloading around the DOCO, the arena, and events, and it's part of the project area. And it made me think that we're also going to have a similar challenge, including with ADA items, I'm sure, coming up on North 7th around Rail Yards Boulevard when the 20,000 seat plus pitch is going to open in 2028. We're also going to need to discuss some of the similar things there as Commissioner Napper brought up that are existing today around DOCO and the arena, because that's going to affect in our expanded downtown core, if you will, once that opens. But to the sediments I'm hearing, and I kind of raised it earlier, that Commissioners Ellis, Patel, and Guerrero brought up, and I mentioned too about scooters and bicycles and motorized vehicles being separate from pedestrians, persons in wheelchairs, persons in motorized type scooters like the hover around, or and things like that. It seems to me, and maybe I can Jesse put this in a motion of directing staff to look at crafting an agenda item after the recess, because I know they're in budget talks right now and that's their focus. But bringing an item to the full council after recess, declaring, similar to what Katie Maple said, this issue that we're discussing on the separate things of roads and sidewalks, an ADA emergency, and where we introduce ordinances and laws and city limits to enforce who is to use the sidewalk and who should not be using the sidewalk, particularly first and foremost from a safety issue. So I'd like that to be a motion and be brought to council in late July or later after they finish their budget proceedings.
Yeah, so just to respond, Commissioner Barnbaum, I think I can discuss with the chair and vice chair on bringing an item. I think if I heard you right, it's about the laws around the sidewalk usage and the scooters and, the speeds between the various modes of travel. And I'll go back and listen, but
yeah, or that,
essentially, I think that might come. I know our planning division is probably doing some work on that, and see if they might have an item they can bring forward. But I'll work with the chair and vice chair and see if there's an item we can bring forward about that.
Yeah, because it often comes down to, whoa, like, can you please walk your device if you're going to use the sidewalk? And that's...
And it might be just a simple report back.
Yeah.
I'll check in with I've talked to our planning staff about that very issue, just, water cooler, and they'll tell me, oh yeah, and they'll rattle off some things.
Right.
But it's just not on my mind right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, Luke, have you come across what planning's saying about that?
Just with regard to the scooters in the bike lanes?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to speak necessarily on behalf of the commission, but if the commission here agrees with me that this should be a motion and something that goes to direct staff to bring to full council,
Right,
then we
we
definitely could speak as a group.
Can I comment real
Yeah.
quick?
Yeah.
Just to make clear, this is a specific agenda item.
Yeah.
On this specific project. And it sounds like what you're bringing up is something you might briefly mention during commissioner comments, because it's not specific to this. It sounds like it's more of a broad issue that you're raising. So that might be a brief mention during commission comments. And then Jesse would have to examine what means there are if staff wants to agendize something, how they're going to then do that, and what process is allowed through the council rules for the council rules of procedure.
Yeah.
So
I mean, to your point, yes, it is a broad issue, but also it kind of started in this item itself.
It was referenced in this item, but it sounds like it's a general discussion that you're raising about scooters.
Right.
Which
For all 8 districts.
Yes, so that may be something be more appropriate to briefly mention.
Yeah.
During the commission comments.
Okay, I'll remember
And then Jesse, at that point, can respond or take it under advisement how best to approach that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Clerk, are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item?
Thank you, Chair. We do not have any speakers for this item.
Thank you. We will now move on to, or I guess first we'll now move on to Commissioner.
I think it's Jesse's report,
Wait,
then commissioner comments.
okay, so we have a report from Jet.
Yeah, so I'll give staff report out. So January 14th, DAC approved your annual report. It was forwarded to the PP&E committee. That was heard on February 24th, approved by the PP&E and forwarded to the city council for full approval. And then the recommendation for the citywide ADA coordinator was forwarded to budget and audit. So on March 24th, 2026, the annual report was approved by the city council on consent, and on May 5th, yesterday, Budget and Audit Committee heard a presentation on the citywide ADA coordinator position. So it was a good discussion, and there was some follow-up in the afternoon. And I'd encourage you, if you want to continue to follow that item, that council will be discussing the budget on May 12th, and also, I think, adopting the budget on June 9th. So, yeah, so that's my report. And then I'd like to turn it over to Stephanie Size, and she has done some, she has a report out on just other activities in the Department of Public Works.
Yes, so, hello. So for May, we wanted to give you all updates on things that have been accomplished and things that are coming up. So HSIP 10 pedestrian crossing improvements project started construction last month, and this project was reviewed by the DAC on October 4th, 2023. And then the Morrison Creek had a ribbon cutting this last weekend on May 2nd, commemorating the completion of the planning study. And the city has started pursuing funding for the Morrison Creek Shared Use Trail. And this project was reviewed by the commission on February 5th, 2025. And something, I don't think the DAC has reviewed this, but it's an update on things that our partner DE has done. So the city is supporting the grand welcoming ribbon cutting for the San Juan Apartments, a new affordable housing community at Stockton Boulevard and Fruit Ridge Road, and the event will take place on Monday, July 7th at 9:30 a.m. and will celebrate the opening of 113 units serving households earning 30 to 60% area median income. The city contributed $2.5 million through its pro-housing incentive program to help deliver this project, and the city's participation includes joining partners, residents, and community members for remarks, a ceremonial ribbon cutting, and site tours to mark this milestone and highlight the city's commitment to expand access to quality and affordable housing. And thank you, that's all. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
If that is the end of Jesse's report, we'll now move on to commissioner comments. Okay, Commissioner Barnbaum?
Yes, thank you. So yeah, just to follow up to our attorney's point, I would like to make the recommendation based on the rant I made in the last item, that an item come to the city council after their July recess, so they can, as you pointed out, in May and the rest of June, they could focus on the budget, and then bring an item of concern that a few of us have raised to the council, and see if that water cooler talk can actually become action of the 9 members. that we're appointed by. I think that they will appreciate that that discussion happened. Second thing I wanted to bring up, last month, I was working some bus bridges in Old North Sacramento, and there was a flyer on one of the poles which had the logo of the city of Sacramento on it, and the date had already passed. So I pulled it and I said, we haven't discussed this that I could recall. So it's called and I'll give this to Jesse when we adjourn. So I'd like to request that the DAC have a presentation at an upcoming meeting before the end of the year, if we don't have one yet, on the Arden-Auburn Mobility Plan. They had a pop-up location apparently on Tuesday, March 24th, to discuss with projects, share your experiences, and provide input on how the city can improve safety, circulation, and access along these corridors. And the city's question was, what's it like traveling on Arden Way and Auburn Boulevard? And apparently there's a project website, cityofsacramento.gov/Arden Auburn Plan. I don't know, Chair Kramer, if we've had this particular discussion, but I told myself, save this flyer and bring this up at our next meeting, so it's today. And if that's something we can agendize or put in the follow-up log, I would appreciate it.
So I can respond to this?
Yes, on this one, yeah.
I don't think we've discussed anything in the Arden area this year, or?
Right, so I'll respond to that. This is a project being in our planning group, and so it's not in engineering services yet.
Okay.
You know, engineering services manages the projects, and we bring forward our projects because they're at a development level that we think is beneficial, like kind of like what was said in some of the earlier comments, where you have enough detail, you can give guidance and we as staff have time to incorporate those comments. Planning typically doesn't want to bring projects to the DAC. But what I would say is I would encourage you to get involved at their outreach meetings and express your comments there, because if they are funded to go into implementation, they'll come here. So they'll come here. So so I think you would just be getting on a very early look.
Oh,
but,
okay.
They typically don't want to come present projects here. That's not to say they never do, but certain efforts do come before the DAC, but they typically don't bring things at that high level planning.
Okay, so
I'd encourage you though to comment on and go to their outreach events.
okay, so this currently, like you said, is in planning and hasn't gotten to engineering.
It's not in engineering
level yet.
No.
Okay, so hang on to this. Then, last thing, just an announcement. Starting tomorrow, at least through May 22nd, the Florin and Meadowview stations will be closed due to construction. A bus bridge or shuttle buses will be in effect from 47th Avenue Station to the Franklin Station, and they will not be stopping at the Morrison Creek Station. So please plan ahead. Shuttle buses cannot run as fast as or the exact alignment or speed as a train. And so if there's any concerns about this coming up starting tomorrow, the phone number to contact is 916-321-2877 if you had any follow-up questions about the Florin and Meadowview platform modification project. And then it looked like we have on the calendar Election Day is June 2nd. Please don't forget to vote. And then the DAC meets immediately the next day after the election, it looks like at 17:30 here in the chamber. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Barnbaum. Vice Chair Ellis?
Yeah, first I just want to thank everyone for all the feedback and the questions for the projects we've received tonight. I think it's really important. That's the value we bring. And like Jesse was saying, like, there's a lot of projects, but we get them at a point where we can add value to them, where they're not that, you know, it's not saying that they wouldn't be value, but there's no, like, if it's in planning, it could be 10 years from now before these are projects that are imminent. So, and I want to say, I think it's really promising to see where we're at with the citywide ADA coordinator. This has been long overdue, long time coming, and at least my impression of the comments from the Budget and Audit Committee yesterday, you know, I'll characterize it as cautiously supportive. You know, I was shocked that it was referred to committee in the first place, number one. And then number two, I figured it would get there and they would say something like, we would love to fund this, but we just don't have the money. But it's now being included in the larger full council budget discussion. And there's a lot of things going on, you know, with that. There are a lot of moving parts, a lot of different funding streams being talked about, and a lot of pressures on the city budget. But the fact that this is at the council and it's being discussed, I think says a lot about what we're doing and how we're doing it here, and being mindful of that our annual reports matter. They are being reviewed, they are being discussed, they are being considered, and a lot of that has to do with the work and contributions of everyone on the commission. So I appreciate everyone in the past who's contributed to these efforts, because there's been many before us, and those of us here and those of us to come in the future. And then the other item that they did bring up also in conjunction with our ADA coordinator was about the public comment process too. That in July they have procured a system. Hopefully there's some testing going on, and it will be accessible. I'm hopeful. I have slight concerns there, but you know, I'm you know, cautiously optimistic about that implementation, and that you can sign up, you know, in chambers with your mobile device for public comment, in addition to doing public comment remotely as well, again, like we did, like they had a few years ago. So I think we've made a tremendous impact on the city as a commission. So, and I know sometimes it seems like there should be more, but I think, you know, our approach is working. And I think it's, you know, being collaborative with staff and being gracious and grateful for all the work of Jesse and the team of Public Works and what they're able to bring before us, and how we're able to add value to these projects is immensely important. So I appreciate the staff and everyone on the dais. So thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Ellis. Commissioner Carr?
Thank you. So I just wanted to bring highlight to, this is the National Military Appreciation Month, and I wanted to thank everyone who has served and in our military and kept us safe. So thank you so much, everyone. And also National Mental Health Awareness Month. So we got to make sure that we take care of ourselves. And I know Commissioner Napper will obviously talk about this a lot, but I just want to make sure that we take care of ourselves and each other. And one thing I didn't know about, but May is also National Wildlife Awareness Month. And we, as we have been highlighting and we have been talking about it, about co-designing emergency response plans for the disability community to ensure that accessibility is an integrated part of planning rather than an afterthought. So we need to keep promoting inclusive disaster planning. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Commissioner Carr. Commissioner Pullen?
Well, I had a whole journey yesterday. I was there for the 11 o'clock to do public comment. Vice Chair Ellis and I did a good, unplanned bad cop, good cop. I was the bad cop. I don't know if that's shocking. We did get a lot of good response from the council members. Something that I think we should be aware of is that the council members were really interested in it. However, they did really point to the city manager a lot, in that the city manager's job is to manage how all of these different departments, because the biggest issue and the argument in the annual report is that one ADA coordinator allows for cross-departmental work, right? We have fantastic people in public work. I mean, we are very lucky in the city of Sacramento that we even have a staff member whose job it is to deal with us. And the public right-of-way and everything that comes forward in front of us is really, really important. And a lot of cities have a lot less when it comes to accessibility in mind with the public works. However, I'm just gonna be a stick in the mud and point out that how fantastic that is not even the bare minimum. We are not even close to where the federal regulations require us to be as the city of Sacramento. And my fear is that currently what's happening is the good people at Public Works are being put as the figurehead of ADA accessibility, which is fantastic up until it gets out of their job description. And literally the assistant city manager looked us all in the eye and said, well, we actually do have a cadre of subject matter experts. That's great, except they don't have a subject matter expert in disability. I think as much as this is fantastic, and I know I'm new to this commission, and I know you guys have been hitting your head against a wall over and over and over, trying to push this forward, and this is great progress, and I completely agree. But we are to the point where, the idea that we are requesting or recommending to a city council to follow federal regulations, problematic, to be honest. And so, at the end of the day, this commission is really good, and I'm glad that the city even has it, and that we are paid a meager sum, but there is, we have backing here. I think it's so important to keep the heel down on we here are doing everything we possibly can, but at the end of the day, we're lay people. Our job as a commission, it literally says that our job is to recommend on policy to help the federal compliance. Interesting. I'll just say that. We have a lot of good work that was just done. My hope is that we can really still keep the pressure on. Even if we can't get an ADA coordinator this budget because of the deficit, I think there's a lot of creative solutions that we could push to make the city at least talk to each other better. At least train. What the city manager said was that we have great people here. That is absolutely true. But the city needs to provide those great people with the backing to do the work that we are asking for. And so as much as, again, the individuals are fantastic and nobody can say that they're not, we as a commission need to keep pushing forward as far as supporting the staff members who are doing the best they can in a job description that does not say anything about us. Right, so yeah, I really appreciate it, and thank you, Vice Chair Ellis, for being my good cop. As you can tell, I'm very cop-ish in my approach.
I cannot see him as a bad cop.
Thank you, Commissioner Pullen. Commissioner Napper?
Yes, thank you. Hope you can hear me okay. This is Leslie Napper. Thank you so much, Commissioner. It's amazing. Lots of motivation behind that. I appreciate it. Yes, May is Mental Health Month, but I want to address something really quickly. Commissioner Barnbaum, around the, not necessarily directly towards you, but I want to just out there. Regarding the enforcement pieces around, how we're using the sidewalk, right, community, I think that that education awareness piece really should be prioritized, and then the educational piece, right? And so, and then, I think about enforcement, but the enforcement already exists, so the part of the education is, hey, you're not supposed to do this, right? And then, I think at some point, have a discussion around what that looks like. I think that's a great idea. I think it kind of complements what Commissioner Patel mentioned around the PSAs, around education. How to use the sidewalks, how to use the bike lanes, how to use the new parking, and all these things that are happening right now in our great city. Yes, it's May's Mental Health Month, and the theme of this year is More Good Days Together. And I really am honored to be in a community with all of you today. Thank you so much. And it made me, and by the way, I'm wearing my green ribbon for May's Mental Health Month, and I have some extras for you guys. But I think I wanted to share with community on the City of Sacramento's website, there's a segment, activities. And one can go on to, and the City of Sacramento, through our community center, parks, and recreations, and there's some wonderful opportunities for those of us living with disability, like adaptive cycling, and these amazing courses that also cater to our disability community, support our older adult community, like Aquasize. I think there's wonderful things that are there, and for those of us that are senior, there's even opportunity to possibly have any fees if they're attached, maybe reduced through the HART program, HART. So I wanted to, as thinking about the theme for May's Mental Health Month and thinking about our wellness, how lovely to participate in a community event through what the City of Sacramento offers. I think if you have any questions, I don't know where we would direct one to if they do, but on the City of Sacramento website, please check it out. To all listening. Thank you so much. And happy May's Mental Health Month.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Napper. Commissioner Greenbaum?
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Commissioner Pullen, for your comments and your representation at the meeting yesterday. I completely agree with you, and it actually kind of segues into what I had been planning to bring up. And then when having the great staff report about the affordable housing project, as well as the development of tiny homes, I'm wondering if we can have, well, because I know the tiny homes are not accessible, I'm wondering if we can have some sort of presentation when the city is undertaking these projects, whether it's for for affordable housing or for housing for the unhoused. I think it's important that that perhaps we have some role in advising on that or providing comments. Especially, I spend a lot of time with this population, and of course, as we know, disability transcends all race, socioeconomic status, et cetera. And I think there'd be some good considerations we may have for them to undertake in these projects.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Greenbaum. Commissioner Pullen?
I promise I'll be quick. Access Leisure is the exact, it's Access Leisure, and I will say that Sacramento, the city, Access Leisure is genuinely studied in recreation therapy courses across actually the world. We are very lucky as a city to have certified recreation therapists whose job it is it to adapt sports of all kind. We have a wheelchair softball team that works with the Giants, I'm pretty sure, if they're still doing that. I mean, Access Leisure is an incredible program, and Sac State has an incredible recreation therapy program that works with Access Leisure as well. Genuinely is like the first of its kind. Sacramento State has a certified recreation therapist who works at their gym that helps disabled students, and that goes into the community. So Access Leisure is exactly what you're talking about, and it's incredible. Please check it out. The second thing is, as Commissioner Greenbaum says, the biggest thing that I'm struggling with this commission is how do we reach out to all the rest of the city explaining, we all know here that disability is the most intersectional thing in the entire world, right? I tried to tell the city council at the 2 p.m. that all of their priorities, homelessness, economic development, public safety, I think, was the third one, that they said, this is what the budget is for. I said, disability is inherent to all three. And currently there is nobody on the city whose job it is to say, hey, I wonder how disability connects to that. And we as a commission, we can only really act on what's in front of us, right? And so it's really difficult to say, hey, for example, contracts and procurement. You guys did that electronic speaker slip. That's fantastic. Who has checked that it's accessible? IT maybe. Okay, great. Can we talk to them? I don't know. So if in the future, if there's a way somehow, maybe I just like wear a shirt that says talk to me and like walk through the halls and like, I learned about Lambert today. Maybe I bring cheesecake. I don't know. I'm feeling inspired. But if there's a way that we can like do a little song and dance to bring people into that and invite them to come talk to us about the tiny houses, about basically anything that the city ever does. Disability is a part of it. And it's really hard for us as a commission to reach out in that way when, especially like I said at the beginning, we are essentially a public works commission right now, which is again fantastic. It's great that we exist, but how do we branch out? That's it. That was longer than I thought it was. Anyway.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Pullen. Commissioner Patel?
It's me. As the fellow commissioners were speaking, two things came to mind. May is Bike Month, so I thought it was really fitting that we talked all about the bike path that they're going to make better and more extensive in our downtown area. It reminded me about something that happened, something that came up during Vice Mayor Talamante's town hall that is actually part of it's super early stages, but it's a little bit about what's been being discussed here. So we had the new law, AB something, I will not remember, that went into effect in January about the classes of bikes and who can ride them and where they can be ridden and the whole more detailed. So at her town hall that came up and scooters were rolled into that discussion. And it was shared that Jibe is partnering in very early stages of partnering with the police chief to start to do the community outreach, to figure out how we can clarify the rules, enforce the rules. And I feel like we have been that has recycled and come up in a lot of discussion today. So I just want to share that there are some entities who are like, these are our specialties, let's partner and figure out how we can get information out. During that time, I spoke to both of them and said, hey, a lot of the offenders are kids because they don't know. And so when you get to a place, how are we partnering with schools to make sure that they can, they know where they reside within those rules, and how can they help educate their students. So just for the commission to know some of the concerns, it's early, but it's being talked about. And I wonder if maybe, Jesse, if maybe as we hear about what they're doing, maybe at some point they come present here to get some feedback on what they might be presenting to the public or moving forward with. And then you were talking about access leisure. So I want to celebrate the city's, since the last time we met, they had a huge YPC, the Youth Park and Community Enrichment Fair, here at City Hall. You could not walk. Talk about right of way. There were so many students around from our community that were here to get information on jobs, on volunteering, on various opportunities through our city. And the Access Leisure interweaves with that because there are some youth opportunities within that as well. But I think some of that is posted through the YPC. Right now is when a lot of those applications or enrollments are now opening. So it was a lot of information a month and a half ago, and now everything's opening up for the youth. So as we're thinking about it for our older population, know that there's just as many opportunities for our youth opening up across our city. And so just celebrate that for our kids.
Thank you, Commissioner Patel. Commissioner Carr?
I just had to say it. I can't let this meeting end, but I just love your passion. I just love it. I love how happy you are with these things. And I second the song and dance routine.
Thank you, Commissioner Carr. For my final words, I do agree with Commissioner Poland, or that there should be some sort of connection between the DAC and the rest of the government, like some sort of like middle person that can focus on every disability or everything in the disability community that needs to be done in Sacramento, because there's a lot of things that like she says we're not able to get to or to cover because we're on a schedule or we already have a pre-existing establishments with other areas and businesses and so I believe that we should try to put that on agenda, or try and or at least talk more about having a middle person between the DAC. Anyway, if that is all for commissioner comments, we will now move to public comments. Clerk, are there any members of the public who wish to speak?
Thank you, Chair. We do not have any speakers for matters not on the agenda.
Thank you. And if that is everything, I believe that we can now bring this meeting to an adjournment. Thank you so very much, everybody, for attending today. This meeting has been adjourned.